Hi guys, welcome to Yamin's Take on Things. Today I'm so excited to be reviewing this book called The Crucible, and this is the book for February. I will be talking about what I liked about the book, the major themes of the book, my favorite characters, and yeah, my thoughts on generally all the things that happened or should not have happened. And at the end of this video I will be revealing the book for March, so stay tuned and enjoy. If you're just joining me for the first time, this is the second book I'm reviewing this year. I've started this new series where I review books every month, so one book per month. So if you haven't watched my first video where I reviewed The Alchemist, please go back and watch that now. So guys, like I usually say, if you do not like spoilers, then this video is probably not for you, so you may want to like read the book first and then come back and join the conversation. This book is actually based on true events, based on the hangings that happened in Massachusetts in 1692. I hope I got that right. Yeah, 1692. 19 women and men were hung on allegations of witchcraft. So Arthur Miller is trying to put us in a space of mind to understand the events that led to this particular hanging, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. So he brings to life several characters, some which were actual characters during the true life events, which were actually participants in the story, but we also have some other characters. So guys, read the book, let me know who your favorite characters are, and at the end of The Crucible it shows a cast, so you can just see all the characters right there. So there are main characters obviously of the book, and there are other characters. Now for the main characters, we have John Proctor and Elizabeth Proctor, we have Abigail Williams, we have Reverend Paris, Betty Paris, and we also have Tituba. Then we also have the court officials, which included Judge Hathorne, Deputy Governor Danforth, and some other court marshals and people like that. So that's basically the summary of the characters and different things we're doing. Now getting into the story proper, according to the version of the story that Arthur Miller has presented in this book, he says that a couple of people were accused of witchcraft, and according to the way the story was told, it seemed like it was obviously a false allegation, right? And there were other motives that led those girls to accuse the people who they accuse of witchcraft. Now in terms of the themes of this book, there are so many themes to look at. Definitely there's the obvious theme, which is religion, and the fact that at that time religion was taken as something so high and infallible that once you call something in the name of God or in the name of being led by the Spirit, then you are just believed wholeheartedly. No matter how much doubt you have in your mind, you cannot dispute what somebody has said in the name of the Lord. So that was the major theme for this book, at least from where I am standing. Now other smaller themes included adultery, pride, forgiveness, making mistakes and consequences of mistakes basically, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to like pick these things out to show you that in as much as this story was based on true life events and there is a major theme which is about witchcraft and hanging of these men and women, the author tried to also bring to life different themes that we in the 21st century can actually relate to and be like, wow, this could be us, right? So that's one thing I would like to just point out before I go in depth into the book. Now the book starts with a group of girls seeming to be sick after a particular event. Now we have a reverend who is like the minister of the particular community called Reverend Paris. Now Reverend Paris is this kind of person who wants everybody to do what he says. He's very materialistic. He likes to talk about money and donations, and I'm sure a lot of you watching this video will be able to relate to that in terms of what the church is today and the ministers of the church. So it's basically about, oh, follow the book, yes, and the minister is infallible. You cannot tell me what to do. Nothing I do is wrong. Things like that. And then he has a daughter called Betty. Betty, along with a bunch of other girls, had an encounter with Tituba. Now, Tituba is a Caribbean slave who was working for Reverend Paris at the time. And according to the story, Reverend Paris stumbled on Tituba and a bunch of girls, including his daughter, dancing in the forest. Now, in this particular community, it's a very conservative community, and you know, the dressing, cover up, you know, don't drink, don't do this, or even if you're going to drink, there's a specific amount of of alcohol you can take, and there's a specific role that men have to play against what women have to play. You know, it's just like certain religious communities that we see today. I do not want to start mentioning any specific names, but I'm sure you guys know those conservative communities where they all live together, they don't allow any external influences. So that's what I think that Arthur Miller was trying to portray in this book. That is the kind of community that was in Massachusetts at that time. And so because of that, hearing that girls were dancing in the woods was like, okay, suspicious stuff, right? Which probably was going to lead to some kind of punishment. However, before anything could happen, before any punishment could be meted down on these girls, they seemed to fall sick. Now, Betty had been lying down on her bed for like 2 nights or so, and she hadn't moved, she hadn't stirred, she hadn't eaten. So same with the Putnam girl, who also hadn't eaten or talked in a couple of days after the incident that happened. Now, the way the story goes, it's obvious that certain investigative decisions were not made. For instance, okay, a group of girls were seen dancing in a forest by the Reverend. First of all, the Reverend did not say exactly what he saw, because when the story starts to progress, you find out that, oh, he actually saw somebody who was naked, he actually saw a pot of something brewing. You know, there were so many things involved that he did not say, partly because he did not want to undermine his own authority in the town, as well as he did not want to also put it forward that, oh, his daughter was doing some kind of sinister stuff in the forest. So he left some details out. So that's the first thing we need to understand in this book, because this is the inception of the whole thing, right? Because of the lack of communication and honesty, a lot of things went downhill, and it just makes you wonder, okay, what if these things were said on time? Then maybe accusations wouldn't have been believed. Well, but that's another side of the story. So yeah, so Reverend Paris did not say what he saw completely. He just said, oh, he saw his girls dancing in the woods, and it made it seem like as if they were under the influence of Tituba. Now, Tituba is a slave at the time, and she really did not have any say in anything. So she only was thinking about protecting herself. Now, the story did not focus too much on Tituba's part or Tituba's role in the whole thing. As far as I'm concerned, I felt like she was the focal point of the whole story. But because of how slaves were treated, obviously, it did not seem like they wanted to even find out what she thought about the whole issue. She didn't even want to find out what was she doing with these children in the woods, why were they dancing. They didn't ask any of these questions. They made it seem like witchcraft was involved, but it could not definitely have been Tituba's own power. So first of all, the devil must have come to her in the night to initiate her, and then somebody else in the town, probably a white person, must have been with the devil to initiate her. So I'm not going to tell you everything that happened in the book, obviously, because I want you to read it as well. But the thing here is that there's every possibility that, yes, the only witch in the whole Massachusetts, or the whole town or village where this happened, was Tituba. But because of the undermining or the thinking that, this person is irrelevant, this person cannot have such power, they did not focus too much on her. Now, don't get me wrong, she probably still hung, right? Because at the end of the book, it seemed like, yeah, she was hung. But it was not like they hung her because she was the one who started the whole thing. Now, at the point where Tituba was actually interviewed, they made it seem like, oh, she needed to confess who sent you, or which person in the village was collaborating with you to initiate these girls. And then, in order to save her own head, she started naming names. Now, this is where the book starts. This is where the whole controversy begins. The point at which Tituba starts to name names. Now, this is just one side of the story. This is one part of the story. There are two parts as far as I'm concerned. I divided the book in my mind into two. There's a side of what Tituba did, and then there's a side of Abigail and her motives. Now, talking about Tituba, like I've just started, Tituba did not say what she was doing in the forest. She just said, oh, a bunch of girls came to me, blah blah blah, and the reason she had this power was because the devil came to her in the night, and with him was so and so person or persons. And that is where the story starts. Tituba accusing certain people in the town. Now, the moment she does that, that sets a series of events that leads to the complete accusation of innocent people of witchcraft. So I feel like Tituba is the focal point of this book, although the author did not really focus too much on her. And I will tell you my thoughts on that at the end of this video, or towards the end, why the author did not focus on Tituba. Now, down to the second part of the book, right, we have Abigail. Now, Abigail is a young, vibrant girl who is very strong-willed and opinionated. She is basically in love with a farmer called John Proctor. Now, John Proctor is a married man. He's married to Elizabeth Proctor. They have, I think, 3 boys together. And Abigail was supposed to be John and Elizabeth's servant or helper, whatever they called it at that time. And while she was working for them, John Proctor had sex with her, right? He slept with her, and according to the way the book is written, it seemed like he instantly regretted it. And after a while, the wife found out and she kicked Abigail out of the house. Now, this is where the other side of the story starts, because Abigail goes on a vendetta. She wants to she loves, according to her, she loves John Proctor. She wants him for herself. She wants to remove Elizabeth from the picture. So that's her own motive. Because of all these motives, Abigail decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to go find some witch to get a potion, whatever, to remove Elizabeth out of the picture. Now, the way I'm telling this story is obviously not how the book is written, but putting the story together, this is how it started. So Elizabeth goes, meets up with Tituba, and the Putnam daughter also meets up with Tituba because she's trying to conjure the spirits of her dead siblings. You would read that and understand what happened as regards that. Then obviously Betty and Mary, who are other young ladies in the town, join in the whole ritual, in quotes, in the woods. And that's where they were dancing and whatever it is they were doing. They never really talked about that, except what the Reverend said he saw, right? So now this is just my own interpretation of the whole thing. At the point where Tituba starts to name names, right, Abigail was in the room. Betty, who claims that she's sick and hasn't talked in like a while, is also in the room. So they're listening in on the conversation between Reverend Hale, Reverend Paris, and Tituba, and they're trying to make her confess. Now, the moment Tituba mentions names, Abigail sees an opportunity. So, okay, this potion thing that I tried to do did not work out. What other thing can I do to eliminate my enemies, right? And then she starts to name names. She names a lot of people in the community. She names people who have talked down on her, because Abigail seemed to be the loose girl in the society. So a lot of people used to see her as, oh, that loose girl. So she had a lot of hatred for a lot of people in the town. So she starts to name names. Now, the beautiful thing about this book is not just the fact that Abigail was able to name names. I feel like if it was just Abigail naming names, she probably wouldn't have been believed. But it is her ability to draw people towards her, right? So she made all the girls start to collaborate her story. So Betty, the Putnam girl, the Mary, and all of them, they started to name names and they collaborated in their story. And as soon as that happened, that was the end, because everybody was like, you know what, if these girls are saying that these people are witches and they're the ones that influenced them to do whatever it is they did in the woods or to act the way they've been acting, and they're saying that they're doing this in the name of the Lord because the Lord has opened their eyes, what else is left to dissuade you from believing? Yes, they were a group of girls who, in their youthful exuberance and stupidity, they decided to accuse people because they did not want to say exactly what they were doing in the woods at that time. And there's also the town that, because of their belief in the upholding of religion and the infallibility of religion, they believe that the girls were saying the truth because they mentioned God. They believe that there's such a thing as witchcraft. There was something that the judge or the deputy governor, one of them, said in the book that said, a normal crime is a physical crime. You can say, okay, this person murdered this person. Yes, that's a crime. We can see it. And we can try to investigate if this person really did this. But with a crime of witchcraft and somebody accusing you that, oh, you came to me at night to press my neck or to do something to me, there's really no way of proving it. There's no way of proving that it happened. But at the same time, there's no way of proving that it did not happen. And because the religion is infallible, it's like, are you trying to say that I'm lying? This thing that God has revealed to me? You know? So it was a very tricky situation. But I believe that if it was something that happened now, or if it was something that, obviously something like that can never even happen now, because nobody even believes that, oh, they are witches. And even if they believe that they are witches, they would have to have had evidence to show that, okay, this thing actually happened. But in those days, it was harder to prove or disprove. But I felt like the people were too easy to accept it. The judges and the officials of the court were they were too quick to accept this accusation, especially when it had to do with killing almost 20 people. And not just any 20 people, but really upstanding members of the society, farmers, business people that had contributed a lot to the society. And all of a sudden, these girls are here saying they are witches and you just believe them. Right? I felt like it was obvious enough to see that they were trying to cover their own tracks because they don't want to say what they were doing in the woods. But apparently, the judges didn't see it that way. So I don't want to hammer too much on why people did what they did, but like I said, there are so many motives in the book. People who were pointed at and said, oh, you are a witch, they were brought into the court and they told them, oh, you know what, if you confess and if you name other names, then you would be free from hanging. And then that's how this a series of events kept happening. And you know, this person named this one because we have been enemies for a long time, so you know what, this is my way of getting back to you. And the other person is naming this person because you have a land that I'm interested in, and if you die, then I can take over your land. So it was just like on and on and on. People started seeing opportunities to call other people out, and it just showed how rotten the human being is. At the back of the book it says, the Crucible is a mirror Miller uses to reflect the anti-communist hysteria inspired by Senator Joseph McCarthy's witch hunts in the United States. Within the text itself, Miller contemplates the parallels. Writing political opposition is given an inhumane overlay which then justifies the abrogation of all normally applied customs of civilized behavior. A political policy is equated with moral right, and opposition to it with diabolical malevolence. So like, if you say that this is wrong, then you are a witch. If you say this is wrong, you are being used by Lucifer. And it was so crazy because going back to John Proctor's story, at the point where he came out and he said, you know what, I'm going to confess. I'm going to confess that this Abigail girl is just out to get me. I'm going to say what I did, even if it shames my name and my family, right? He tried to do all that, but if it was like a little, like too little too late at the point where he came forth, because you are now trying to oppose something that has already been stated as, oh, this is the law, this is the morality of our society, these are witches, and these girls have said that these are witches because it has been revealed to them by God. And then you want to come and say, okay, this is not what it is. First of all, you are going to put down the religious order of things, and then secondly, you're going to say every other person who has been indicted before that point, like are you trying to say that we made a mistake? You know, that feeling of that pride that we are the officials of the court and of the church. You cannot say we made a mistake. We're not going to agree that we made a mistake. So we rather let 20 people die than to admit that we made a mistake. So many vices, guys. Like, I feel like you guys need to read this book because it's a very short book and it's a play. So it doesn't take, I read the book in one day, and it's just a lot packed into one book. A lot of themes, a lot of vices, and it just makes you feel, you know what, the human being is really twisted. Like, the human being is really twisted. Like, just imagine what a girl would do just for the love of a man. She basically caused the death of 19 people just because her love was unrequited. Like, that's some terrible stuff right there, right? And I felt like at the beginning it was understandable that, okay, you know what, these girls they want to hide their backs and stuff, and so they kept lying and lying and lying. But at the point where they started seeing that, okay, this stuff is real, like shit is about to get real, am I gonna keep up with this story? You know, people are about to die here. At what point am I going to say, you know what, I can't let this happen? Never happened. Never. They never confessed. And you know the great thing about this book that I actually respect the author for? Abigail went scot-free. She ran away. She started her life somewhere else. And she was never caught. She was never brought to book. She never faced any consequences. And you know what? I'm like, yeah. The town deserves that. The town deserves never punishing the people who caused this, because you were so stupid to actually see and read in between the lines. Even when the facts were brought to you, you decided to go with religion. And so I actually like how that ended. Yeah, I feel like I've talked a lot. Now, going back to Tituba and why I thought that she wasn't focused on as a, like, the focal point of the story. First off, I feel like because she was a slave, there was not enough information for even the author to investigate. Because guess what, a black slave at that time, who cares? You know, like, her life is worth less than nothing. So they didn't want to focus too much on her. Probably her name was probably just mentioned once or twice in the whole research that he did. So he was like, you know what, I'm just going to divert the attention from her towards the girls that were actually written down. And so obviously that's what I think was the reason, because to me, I like, that was the focal point of the story. Why wasn't that talked about? Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the fact that, like, Tituba was in the woods with a bunch of girls? Why? What was happening? What happened right there? Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know, at least not from the Crucible. And so, which brings me to the next book for March. Now, while I was reading this book, I remember that I had heard Tituba somewhere before. Like, the name was so familiar. I was like, where have I heard this before? And then I remember that it was a book that I read a long time ago. I, Tituba, Black Witch of Salem. So, Salem, the same town in Massachusetts where these hangings happened, and the same Tituba who was mentioned in this story. So it's like, this is the best way to actually continue the story. Maybe find more details about what happened to Tituba, why she did what she did or what she was actually doing. Maybe we could find out in this next book. So guys, if you haven't read this book before, I would implore you to buy it and read it with me. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to find out Tutuba's side of things. And yeah, I think the story might not be based on true events. Yes, we know that Tutuba was an actual human being, and we have we've been able to accept that it's not just a fictional character. But because the research or the information about her is very limited, different people have written their own stories about how she came to be what she was and how she came to be a slave in Salem. Now, on the Crucible, it was from the angle of the residents of Salem at the time. But with this, it's a story of how Tutuba even got to Salem in the first place. So it promises to be a very interesting read, and guys, I hope you enjoy it and read it with me for the month of March. Now, in terms of favorite parts of this book, I think my favorite part of the book was when they called in Elizabeth Proctor to come and speak something about her husband. And that point was like, there were so many points in the book where they could have stopped the hanging. So the author puts you in that suspense where you're like, oh, are these people not going to die? Is this where they are saved? But nah, it never happens. They eventually get hanged. So just putting that out there. So yeah, I think that point where Elizabeth is called into the room to come and say something about her husband, and her husband is not allowed to actually say anything. So they brought her into the room, and she eventually lied to protect her husband, John. And that part was so touching for me, because I'm like I could see the love in there. Like, this person cheated on you, you're still angry with him, because if you read the book, you could see that they were still having quarrels about the event where John slept with Abigail. But when it came to it, she was still thinking about protecting her husband, protecting her husband's name, trying to save her husband's life and her life. So I don't know, I just feel like that was my favorite part of the book. One, because the suspense where you think, oh, if they bring in Elizabeth to this scene, then she's going to tell the truth and everybody's going to be saved. But nah, nobody was saved by that. In fact, things got worse because of that. So yeah, I think that was my favorite part. And yeah, favorite characters, John was a nice character. I felt like he was too slow to doing what he was supposed to do, but eventually I guess he came to tell the truth, even though it was too little too late. I also like Giles Corey, because he was the kind of person that, you know what, he was not going to go back on his word, he was not going to go back on his beliefs, and he never confessed to being a witch, and he never confessed to not being a witch. So he just like was silent, and he was eventually killed. He was not even hanged, which was funny, because like I don't even care, do what you need to do. So apparently what they did was that they put stones on his chest, hoping that he was going to confess, but he never did, and he died like that. So Giles Corey was one very admirable character for me. Who else? My worst character is probably Reverend Hale, because he was in a position to do proper investigations and save a lot of people, but he was just too focused on trying to find something spiritual or something supernatural in the story rather than looking at the facts. And when he eventually saw the facts and saw the truth, too little too late again. So Reverend Hale was my worst character. I felt like he could have done more. He could have done a lot more. Yeah, in terms of pride, the deputy governor, the judge, they did not want to step down to say, okay, you know what, maybe we made a mistake. They just couldn't accept that, so they rather hang people than say I made a mistake, which was crazy, absolutely crazy. Let me know what you think about the Crucible. I'm sure you would enjoy it. It's a very short book, and it's also a play, so you can read it in like less than 2 hours if you're a fast reader. So yeah, and let me know your favorite characters in the comment section. Let me know what part of the book you liked. Let me know how you think things could have happened differently, and your thoughts on the various themes that I brought out for this particular book. If you're just joining, please subscribe. More book reviews coming in the future. And like I said before, just to reiterate, the book for March is called I, Tituba, Black Witch of Salem by Mary's Conde. I hope I pronounced that right. Mary's Conde. Right, so that is the book for March, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and this is me out. Bye.